What's good, family? It's me, Coach 67 Sports TV. Shout out to the amazing LDBC, Lions Den Boxing community. Shout out to the greatest university in the world, Southern University, home of the mighty Jaguars. Before I go any further in the video, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, comment in the comment section, and you can follow me at Coach 67 Sports TV on all social media platforms, on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, and on Twitter. All right, so this video is going to serve two purposes. One, it's going to be a recap of Southern University's 2022 homecoming against Virginia Lynchburg, and it's going to also serve as kind of like the pre-analysis of Southern University against Jackson State this coming weekend. First, in terms of my recap of homecoming against Virginia Lynchburg, first and foremost, in terms of the atmosphere and the buzz around E.W. Mumford Stadium, P. Richardson Field, it kind of had the same vibe that homecoming has every year. And it really, in terms of the crowd, it really kind of was like the type of crowd that he had in his heyday in the mid to late 90s at E.W. Mumford Stadium. So much so that the line was so long on the east side to get into the stadium. I didn't even get into the game until like 14 minutes and 9 seconds left in the second quarter, which is ridiculous. I missed the whole first quarter. I mean, I'm big in terms of I like to be there before kickoff. Like to be settled in my seat and like to catch the start of the game. I didn't even catch the start of the game. By the time I got in the game, Southern was up 10-0 against Virginia Lynchburg. So that was one thing I was kind of aggravated with and disappointed with. The lines were extremely long on the east side. And I just thought like maybe they were real thorough in terms of checking the bags, because the day prior to homecoming, in the homecoming game, like early that morning, they had shooting in Scotlandville. Like 9 people were injured and shot. So I thought maybe that had something to do with it. But once I got to the front of the line, they really wasn't real thorough in terms of checking your bags. Of course, E.W. Mumford Stadium has a clear bag policy, like most sporting venues around Baton Rouge. So they weren't even really checking the bags that thoroughly. The line just was extremely long. Of course, most of the people that were in the game on this particular side of the field, on the east side, that's the away side at A.W. Mumford Stadium, they probably weren't, probably don't come to most games, most of the Southern games to begin with. So that's probably the reason why the lines were like longer than usual. Like I said, it kind of reminded me of going to a Southern game in the mid to late 90s where Southern was at their heyday. They really was the top team in the SWAC, and like the top team in terms of HBCUs and black college football. You know, they were amongst the best teams at that particular point in time. So it kind of had that kind of vibe and atmosphere. In terms of the game, I felt like Southern was looking ahead to Jackson State, because it seems like at certain points in the game, Southern really wasn't focused. They made a lot of silly mistakes. I mean, I'm not going to say they played terrible, but to me, I think they kind of played down to the level of the competition. At one point, Gerard Sims fumbled the ball on like the minus like 5 yard line on the minus side of the field, and it led to a Virginia Lynchburg touchdown. But just to recap, it really wasn't a real competitive game. Southern ended up winning and beating Virginia Lynchburg 51-7. Now I'm kind of looking ahead to the Jackson State game this coming weekend. Last year when Southern and Jackson State played, I was in attendance at that game. It was the best game in terms of best game at A.W. Mumford Stadium the whole year. It was the best Southern University game that I attended. Southern, they lost a real close game to Jackson State. Of course, Southern led like pretty much the vast majority of the game. Glenda Bubba McDaniels, he played a decent game. He was Southern's starting quarterback at the time. He's Southern backup quarterback now. So at that particular time, he was the starter. Southern, like late in the fourth quarter, Southern was up by 3 points. A couple receivers had Jackson State beat. I don't know if it was blown coverage, whatever the case may be, but they dropped what would have been the go-ahead touchdown that would have put them up. Instead of just putting them up 3 points, they could have went up 10 points and probably put the nail in the coffin because they had like about 5 minutes left in the game. Of course, at this point, Shedeur Sanders, he just kind of, once Jackson State got the ball back, he led Jackson State down the field, led them to a touchdown. J-State went up, and at that point, they only had like a few minutes left in the game. Jackson State ended up winning the game. It was a great game, the best game I went to all year, even though Southern lost. It was an exciting game, and I was thoroughly pleased. Of course, Jackson State was so excited about the win because, in all actuality, they knew they really deserved to lose that game. And what they did was they planted the Jackson State flag on the 50-yard line. And at this point, Southern players were offended. They got upset, and it led to a fight after the game. And to me, it was a damper on the entire game because it was a great game, great night. They had a lot of J-State fans in attendance. It was a great game. It was a great atmosphere, you know. Even though, you know, we opposing teams and it's like a real rivalry, you know, there's a lot of love when you go to the SWAC games. And, you know, even though we had fun that night and there was a lot of laughing and joking, it kind of was like a damper on the evening. Coach Primey, eventually he apologized for the actions of his players, but as a coach, myself, and as a Southern fan that been going to Southern games since the very, very early 80s, I felt Southern shouldn't have put themselves in that position. It was a winnable game, and they let it slip through their fingers. And as a result, I felt like they shouldn't have been upset with J-State planting the flag on the 50-yard line. They shouldn't have put themselves in that situation. They should have just won the game and closed it out like they should have. But spinning it forward to this weekend, it's going to be imperative that Southern, they basically stay ahead of the chains and they play a good, clean game. A lot of the mistakes they made against Virginia Lynchburg, they're not going to get away with them same mistakes against Jackson State. So it's going to be imperative that Southern plays a real good game. Like, for example, Gerard Sims putting the ball on the ground. I think Southern had like three fumbles against Virginia Lynchburg. Virginia Lynchburg only recovered one of them. That, like I said, the one where Gerard Sims fumbled the ball deep in their own end of the field, which led to a Virginia Lynchburg touchdown, the only score that they had during the course of the game. Southern is not going to be able to have those kind of mistakes and those kind of mental lapses. So Southern's offense against Jackson State's defense, of course, Bashawn McCray, the starting quarterback. He's a dual threat quarterback. I think he's primarily a running quarterback more so than a running. I mean, he is more so a running quarterback than a pocket passer. Now he's progressed greatly in terms of early in the year he could only read one side of the field. He had difficulty going through his entire progression. At this point in the season, he's made a quantum leap in terms of he's a much better passer, much more accurate passer. He still at times struggles with going through his entire progression, but he's reading defenses a lot quicker and he's making quicker decisions, which is a good thing in terms of Southern quarterbacks that kind of made like a quantum leap in terms of turning the corner and playing much better. The only Southern quarterback I could really think of that made like a real quantum leap, and it was more so because of circumstances, was Quincy Richard at the time. In 2002, he was Southern's starting quarterback, and at that particular point in time, he was injured a lot, and it seems as if he was just struggling as a quarterback. And Pete Richardson, during the course of the week, he kept saying he's injured, he's hurt. And I'm thinking to myself, he's that hurt, why not just play your backup quarterback at the time, which was Thomas Ricks? But he didn't. He stuck with Quincy Richard, and then, like at the end of that year, his junior year, like leading up to the Bayou Classic, he finally said, you know, hey, he's healthy. You know, he should play much better. And that particular year, he had a great performance in the Bayou Classic his junior year. And pretty much, I'm not going to say that Bashawn McCray has made that type of quantum leap, but As the QB, he's definitely turned a corner. Of course, he's still more of a run threat than he is a pure pocket passer. But, you know, that should help in terms of him being able to read coverage and go through his progression on the offensive side of the ball. In terms of the running game, they have a three-headed monster at running back. Gerard Sims, he's the returning starter from last year in terms of running back. Even though he was injured and hurt most of the year last year. But they also have two newcomers, Kendrick Rhymes and Carl Ligon at running back. And it seems like for Southern home games this year, it's always been the back you least expect to really kind of lead the charge. Even though Bashawn McCray is the leading rusher, we have games where Gerard Sims led the team in rushing. Carl Ligon led the team in rushing against Alcorn State. And Kendrick Rhymes, he led the team in rushing like a game or two this year. So Southern relies heavily on their running game, but it's going to be imperative that Bashawn McCray in the passing game that he gets the ball to his two top receivers, Cassius Allen and August Petrie III. It's going to be imperative that he gets those receivers the ball out in space. On the defensive end, Southern is going to definitely need to make plays to get Shedeur Sanders off the spot. I'm looking for Dion Lewis to have a big game, even though he's kind of been banged up during the course of the season. I'm looking for him to have a big game on the defensive side. So I know Southern has a real bad taste in their mouth after the way things played out last year. So I know Southern is going to look to get redemption. And in addition to that, give Jackson State their first loss on the season. So I'm looking forward to the game. Again, it's the Coach 67 Sports TV. Shout out to the amazing LDBC, Lions Den boxing community. Shout out to Southern University, the greatest university in the world, home of the mighty Jaguars. I'm going to give you part 2 in terms of what to expect this coming weekend. Y'all have a blessed and phenomenal evening. Peace and blessings.